Okay, well, okay, I'll read the accessibility statement. We call the order, introduction and accessibility statement and Title V non-discrimination statement to be read by the chair at the start of each meeting. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Microphones or telephones will be used by the speaker. Large print material are available upon advance request. It would be like either of these accommodations. Please contact Mary Walden at 508-583-1833. The notice of non-discrimination rights and protections to beneficiaries with regards to the federal Title V non-discriminatory protection and the state non-discrimination protection is posted in this meeting room and is available on the Old Colony Planning Council website. Please contact Mary Walden, 508-583-1833. For more information. Thank you.
You want me to do the roll call?
Yes,
Chair?
please. Yes,
All right.
please do the roll call.
Okay. Abington.
John Stone.
Thank you, John. Avon. Bridgewater. Brockton.
Jada Grace, Mayor's Office.
Thank you. Duxbury. East Bridgewater. Easton.
Greg
Dave
Vaughn.
Field. Oh, Dave Field, and Greg Swan.
Thanks, guys. Halifax. Hanover.
Rhonda Nyman.
Thank you, Rhonda.
You're welcome.
Hanson. I know we Dawn out from Hanson. Kingston. Pembroke. Plymouth. Plimpton. Stoughton.
Pam McCarthy.
Thank you, Pam. West Bridgewater. And Whitman.
Dan Salvucci, alternate.
Thank you, Dan. And do we have anyone from Brockton Area Transit on that? I know that they have an advisory board
Glenn
meeting.
is on.
Thanks, Glenn. And anybody from, I saw Barbara come on. Anyone else from MassDOT District 5?
Hi, it's Bob. I'm here.
Hi, Barbara. Thank you. And finally, anyone from MassDOT Office of Transportation Planning? Okay.
Just Bill,
Okay,
if I
all set.
could, Al DiGirolamo from Senator Brady's office is on.
Okay. Thank you, Al. Welcome.
That being said, I'd like a motion to accept the minutes of September 1st, 2022.
So moved, Hanson.
Second,
You're up.
Abington.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes,
so we lost a long time staff member of Old Colony Planning Council and a friend of many of us, Jim Watson. You can see on his screen. We received the news recently that he sadly passed after a quick illness. So if we could just could entertain a moment of silence.
absolutely. Thank you very much. We'll have a moment of silence, please. Thank you, everybody. Okay, that being done, I'd like a motion to accept the minutes of September 1st, 2022.
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Sure. Abington,
Yes.
Avon, Bridgewater, Brockton,
Yes.
Duxbury, East Bridgewater, Easton,
Yes.
Halifax, Hanover.
Yes.
Thank you. Hanson.
Yes.
Thank you, Don. Kingston, Pembroke, Plymouth, Plimpton, Stoughton.
Abstain. I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay, thank you. West Bridgewater, Whitman,
accept.
thank you. Bat,
Yes.
thank you. And MassDOT District 5,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Is there anything further for public comments? I know that we had that moment of silence. Is there anything else like to be heard in public comment? Hearing none. Next is communications. Kyle, I believe that's you.
Yes, thank you. First up is a virtual design public hearing in Duxbury for bridge replacement on Route 3 Pilgrim Highway, northbound, southbound over Franklin Street, and that'll be on October 6th at 6 p.m. Next is a Safe Routes to School infrastructure project funding program. Applications for Safe Routes to School projects will be accepted from Monday, October 3rd to Friday, November 18th. And more info can be found at that link. Beyond Mobility virtual public meeting will be held on Thursday, October 20th at 6 p.m. And to register, you can visit that link provided in the staff report. Next, Federal Highway Administration approves MassDOT plan for electric vehicle charging stations on major highway corridors in Massachusetts. And more info for this, I believe, yes, can be found on that link. Next is a meeting announcement, public hearings on the proposed clean energy and climate plan for 2050. There's multiple dates. Option 1 is Thursday, October 6th from 6 to 8 p.m. Option 2 is Friday, October 7th from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. And then I believe there's a third option, Wednesday, October 12th from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. And that concludes my communications report.
Thank you very much, Kyle. We'll move on to 5 reports. Brockton Area Regional Transit Authority from BAT.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question for Kyle. Is OCPC
Okay.
going to do, are you guys planning to provide a summary of any of the charging infrastructure that was recommended as part of that MassDOT plan for the region?
I can look into this and I'm sure we can provide a summary on that.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Okay, so as Bill said earlier, we're just wrapping up our advisory board meeting. So Michael has asked me to share a couple updates with everyone this morning. So again, through the chair, thanks so much. We are still showing that ridership is fairly stable as our operations. We're watching closely as Boston continues to reopen, and so that we can see the potential impacts that will have on our ridership for our route to Ashmont Station. We completed the first steps of our Westgate Mall bus stop expansion project, which I talked about last month. And that included paving alongside the market basket there at the Westgate Mall. We're identifying additional passenger amenities and we'll be purchasing those. And those will include new bus shelter, seating, digital signage, wayfinding, planters, and it will be our first mini hub here in the Brockton area. So that is our second busiest stop in the city. And this project is being funded by MassDOT Rail and Transit and the MassDOT Shared Streets and Spaces program. So we're excited about that project. We also recently installed electric vehicle charging stations here at BAT's parking facilities, and we're pursuing additional funding for additional charging stations here. It's a great amenity for our customers and our visitors. downtown. I also wanted to talk about our Rockland microtransit service, which will be rolling out in the next few weeks. We'll have more information about the service as it rolls out, but we do have a landing page set up on our website, which is ridebat.com/Rockland. And so we'll be updating information about how to sign up for that service, how to download our app, how to book a trip. And of course, if anybody has questions, they can reach out to me also. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board? Seeing none.
Thanks so much.
Say again?
I just
okay.
said thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is B, Greater Attleboro Taunton Regional Transportation Authority, GATRA. Mary Ellen, that's you can take that over.
I will. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, while we are seeing our ridership numbers maintain, we are finally hitting that wall of drivers. And starting last Monday, we had to reduce service in the Attleboro Taunton area. So we have managed to maintain our driver numbers in the area that OCPC covers, but we are actively recruiting new drivers now to ensure that we can both restore the service that we've had to cut, as well as keep our numbers up as we approach the holiday season and more people wanting to ride. We want to be able to provide that service. So that is our report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mary? Seeing none, we'll move on to C, South Coast Rail project. Kyle, is that yours, right?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just provide a brief summary on what's been going on since last JTC meeting. I think you can go to the next slide, Bill. So in September, work conducted involved continued fencing installation in 8 communities on Fall River and Middleborough secondary lines and New Bedford main line, utilizing Cotley Street in Berkeley to access right away for various project activities, 24-hour track work in Assonet, Berkeley, Lakeville, Middleborough, Raynham, and Taunton, 24-hour crossing work in Freetown and New Bedford, daytime and overnight track work in Lakeville, Middleborough, Raynham, and Taunton, daytime crossing work in New Bedford, daytime work at Fall River Depot and Freetown station sites, detour in Fall River for bridge work, daytime road work on Route 105 in Middleborough, and improvements to the CSX rail yard in Middleborough. Also, additional work done included daytime construction at station sites, layover sites, and along the right-of-way from Middleborough to New Bedford, as well as along the right-of-way from Berkeley to Fall River. And there's also overnight and daytime transportation of soils by truck to designated project sites, as well as detours for various project activities. And if you'd like to sign up for weekly updates, you can go to this link that's provided in your staff report. And that concludes my report for South Coast Rail.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions, Kyle? Seeing none, I guess we move on to, let's see, old business. The 2023 to 2027 Transportation Improvement Program implementation. That Gene?
Nope, that's me actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I might have noted the sheet, but so on your screen is the update for the 2023 to 2027 tip. The only one substantial project update that I have right now is, and it was noted in the communications. So tonight at 6 p.m. there's a design public hearing. It's virtual for the Duxbury Bridge replacement on Route 3 or Franklin Street. That's two bridges, northbound, southbound. They plan to demolish, well, they plan to build a new bridge in the median, which will be the permanent northbound bridge, and rebuild the southbound bridge. So it'll be multi-phase project, but so the design hearing for that is tonight. OCPC will be in attendance, and hopefully we see others there as well. Looking forward to it. That's the only substantial project update. I'll just scroll through the tip, and if you have any questions on any specific projects, I'll entertain them. 2023, 2024,
Okay, any
2025.
questions?
Uh,
You still going, Bill?
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through it right now. 27, and then projects that are currently unprogrammed but listed in our tip. So if you have any questions about any of these projects, you can either ask now or you can always contact me offline too.
Okay. Are you all set now?
I'm all set.
Okay, we move on to new business, MBTA right of way and grade crossing safeties. Who's
This is
doing
Gene.
that?
This is Gene.
All right,
Gene, do you have a present? Do you need to share your screen?
she on?
I believe so. Sorry, come on.
Hey, I was gonna,
She's on
mute. This is Joe from with.
I'm sorry, I needed Joe Segroy to share.
Oh.
Apologies. I can't keep up with where the mute buttons are.
No problem.
Yeah, it looks like it's disabled for me right now, but if you can enable that.
Can we enable Joe? Yeah.
So I'll stop sharing my screen. You should be able. I just made you co-host. So you should be able to share, Joe. I'll stop
Okay.
sharing mine.
Thanks, Bill.
Everyone see that?
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, so thank you for the invitation. This project is really cranking along quite well. But our concern, and I've been very vocal about this, is the region hasn't seen fast moving trains in 60 years. And as we go through the presentation, I'll show you where some of the primary areas of concern are, but pretty much the entire right of way. We have homelessness, we have recreational use of the tracks. We have people who don't understand that gates down at a grade crossing is not a game of dodge 'em. So Joe, if we could just advance a little bit, we'll share with you some of the things we're doing. Basically, just from some history, we had trains down here until 1959. The biggest problem back in the day was a derailment every once in a while, and they weren't that common. But because there hasn't been much activity, just some slow moving freight, people don't consider that freight traffic any kind of dangerous traffic. They can get out of the way quickly, they can hear it, the clickety clack is very audible. So they don't see that as any kind of a safety issue or deterrent of any kind. And of course, we don't really monitor the right of way much. You've got 12 miles of track on the Fall River line. You've got 22 on the New Bedford line. And a lot of that just is out in the middle of nowhere with really no policing. So there is a lot of unsafe and illegal use of the right of way in the region. And starting next summer, we're going to have test trains running. Next slide, Joe. So by way of review, and all of you have seen this, we're basically connecting the existing Middleborough service and taking that service over to Taunton, Fall River, and New Bedford. It includes 6 stations and 2 layovers. We expect the ride to be about 90 minutes from both New Bedford and Fall River. We have ordered 16 new bi-level coaches to accommodate the additional ridership on this line. We're looking at 3 peak period morning, 3 peak period after evening trains, and there may be some in the middle, weekends. All this final scheduling will be determined by railroad ops. I think you probably all heard in the news recently, they just changed the schedules again. This happens. This is based on ridership, based on demand. Commuter rail now is up to 77% of pre-pandemic levels, which is, I think, laudable. And I expect it to continue to increase. If anybody's been on Route 24 lately, I'm pretty sure all of you have. It's an unpleasant experience, to say the least. And with people having more schedule flexibility, it means it's always crowded. So we still expect our revenue service to start at the end of 2023 with, again, the testing and commissioning starting next summer. So with no real monitoring, we have a lot of ATVs, dog walking, there's a lot of vandalism, tagging, all of these things have been ubiquitous. The trash has been an enormous problem. We actually literally have contractors that come up in the middle of the night and dump debris on the tracks in places. So when you have trains that are actually running along here and can't see for 18 football fields to stop, that's a real risk for derailment. We also have high levels of homelessness in the area. I've been out with task force from both New Bedford and Fall River, and we've moved some of them, but they typically camp right next to the tracks. I'm very concerned. Again, they can hear the freight right now, mostly, but once we start running these trains, you really can't tell A, which direction they're coming from, or B, how fast they're going. So for the homeless population and the recreational users and the dog walkers, this poses some hazards they're just completely unfamiliar with. So getting the message out has been one of our primary focuses of late. And then the towns are concerned. I don't know about all of your communities, but I know down here, I'm hearing from every single police department, they cannot get their resource levels up to what they should be. We're having trouble getting detours or details for project work. So they want to know, with their limited resources, how are they going to then take this on? And so far, what I've been able to share is that we're looking at a lot of grants that we'll share with them. One of them is through FRA, a Chrissy grant, which allows some funding for basically police detail. So you could assign police officers to the right of way and pay them out of that funding. So we've had some luck in some areas where we've moved homeless encampments, and we've been able to discourage recreational use simply because we're out there with all this big equipment building things. And the environmental police have been helpful, but they have extremely limited resources. Next slide, Joe. So this route goes through cities, towns, rural areas, and everywhere else. Has tiny, tiny, narrow right of way and then wider right of way. But homeless typically find themselves in the urban areas, and they'll stay away from station areas and grade crossings. So they go off into what is more probably vegetated area, but still, again, right next to the railroad tracks. We've been working with both Fall River and New Bedford, as you can see from this slide, identified 160 homeless. Their fast response team is outstanding. In fact, the woman who runs it was homeless herself at one time. She has compassion, she cares, and she's working with police and others to help these people find another place to go. But typically what happens in many, many cases anyway, they just move further down the right of way. And this is true everywhere, not just here, not just in Massachusetts, but nationally. In New Bedford, they identified 61 chronically homeless. And I can tell you from experience, that number is not at all accurate. It's substantially higher. And they have a good service service system in place as well. But again, they typically just move. And then we come in with heavy equipment, they'll move again. So we really haven't resolved this problem, which the trespassing piece is the one that to me is the most irksome. But we are already having regular meetings with police and fire, actually. We've identified access points. City of Fall River has actually erected some cameras so that they can be ahead of that. There are certain points just easier to get into and out of, but we're encouraging that elsewhere. Of course, all our station sites will have cameras, but again, that's not where homeless people go, nor is it where people who want to trespass or vandalize go. They're not going to go to illuminated areas. Next slide. So here's one site. I have to say, 2 weeks ago, I saw one that was much nicer than this. It was beautiful, actually. It was very well maintained. But as you can see, they're fouling the track. They're in the track. You can see also that this is a single track area, not double track, which means it's extremely narrow. And if they were to roll over near the tracks, it would be a very bad situation. And we have a number of these. Next slide. So in Braintree, there's this heavy duty transportation rescue piece of equipment, and it's enormous, and it does everything, and it's designed to do extrication and rescues on the right of way. I'll give you an example of why something like this is important. if there is an accident on the highway and you have to extricate somebody from a vehicle, the fire departments and rescue teams are equipped with the jaws of life. And that's how they get people out of a vehicle. A trained coach and a trained locomotive can't be touched with the jaws of life. You need specialized equipment to get into those vehicles to get the people out. This particular piece of rescue equipment goes as far south as Plymouth. It has outriggers, it has winches, it has particularly specialized equipment for train extrication and derailment. And it was a hefty piece of equipment. It hasn't been deployed very often, but in a time of extreme need, a mass casualty event, for example, this would be a piece of equipment you would want to have. So we're working again with the local public safety people. We do know that the bond bill had put in, thanks to Rep. Strauss, some funding to help equip the fire departments, the EMS, so that they can respond. But some of the questions they've raised are amazing. Like we had a derailment in Fall River on a freight locomotive and train, and it was a giant log that had rolled down the hill, and the fire department did not realize that they could just go ahead and cut the fence. Well, of course you're going to cut the fence. Cut the fence, we'll replace it. If there's somebody down there that needs your help, you go however you need to go to get there. Next slide, Joe. So what we're doing, we have definitely been hammering our message home. In our fact sheets, our emails, presentations, we remind people that staying in the right of way is not only dangerous, but it's illegal. Trespassing on state property is not something you're supposed to do. There is no safe place to be on the tracks or near the tracks, except if you're actually in a train or at a designated crossing. We have fencing in and around areas that are heavily populated and traveled, but they're not everywhere. It will help minimize the trespassing, but it's not going to eliminate it. I mentioned the cameras in Fall River. We'd like to see more of that happening. In other places around the country, they have cameras at grade crossings. They use those for enforcement purposes. So if a car does dodge a grade crossing, they get the license plate number and they issue a citation. We are not allowed to do that in Massachusetts. We could, however, consider using it as an educational tool. In other words, if we had a camera there and we captured a license plate, we could send out a flyer saying what you just did was illegal and highly dangerous. So we're looking at that as something we can do. Next slide, please. We also are just wrapping up a series of 4 videos, which we will gladly share with everybody. There are 3 for the schools, age appropriate, short videos, but they stress safety. They stress the fact that the right of way is never safe. They stress that if you see something, every grade crossing has a big blue sign with a number on it. That's the main number. You always call that. And that will dispatch the appropriate personnel to the situation and the scene. We're also right now just finishing up, just got the first draft of it yesterday, a video for the general public, which I thought was actually quite good. These are not actors. These are real people. So don't expect polish, but the messaging that they deliver is exceptionally good. It's clear, it's articulated well, and I think it delivers the message. And these videos can be shown in classrooms, libraries, senior centers. They can be on cable, just whatever we can do to reinforce the messaging here. So we actually, our plan is in development, and we're looking at a grant we just discussed yesterday, a small grant, but it's from Operation Lifesaver. And what we'd like to do is look to see about getting some books, Operation Lifesaver books that would go in school libraries, and town halls. Next slide. So liar, liar, pants on fire. As of this week, freight trains will not be operating at 10 miles an hour, 5 days a week. They have been authorized by Federal Railroad to operate at up to 25 miles per hour. They will not exceed 10 miles per hour at grade crossings. But this is a substantial change from the clickety-clack, very slow moving locomotive that we've seen in our region. So we actually, the last couple of days, have just peppered everybody with flyers on this change to freight. And why can freight do this? Because South Coast Rail has fixed all the track. It's a wonderful thing. We'd like to see freight expand. We want to see freight move more stuff more efficiently. But I think for our region, it's a little bit of a nail biter, only because people are not accustomed to it. 25 is not 80. Our maximum authorized speed for commuter rail in the region across the state is 79 miles per hour, which we round to 80. And these locomotives are not quite the same as a commuter rail push-pulls, but it'll still be more difficult to hear them, and they will be traveling at faster speeds. So we have done an awful lot of raising awareness on this particular issue. And then Mass Coastal is our local freight partner. They are the operator on all the tracks in our region. And they also, well, CSX operates on the Middleborough secondary, but Mass Coastal's in charge. They do promote Operation Lifesaver. That's a program where volunteers who are specially trained go into classrooms, explain the dangers of the right of way, explain what you do in the event you see something or are concerned about something, and they do an exceptional job. We, however, have a very large geographical area. The number of volunteers is fairly small. That was the primary motivation, which we worked out with FRA and MBTA safety. That was the primary motivation behind the development of the videos, which again, we will share far and wide. They'll be on YouTube, they'll be for everybody. Next slide. Oh, Mass Coastal, just so you know, has 150 miles of track. They go all the way to the Cape. They go all the way to Framingham. They do an awful lot. We're working very closely with them on everything we do right now. Whenever they see a homeless encampment, they let us know. When they observe trespassing, they let us know. They've been an exceptionally productive and helpful partner. So we're developing a multi-phase safety program. We're really excited about this new rail connection, or the reinstallation of a rail connection between the South Coast and Boston, actually Southeastern Mass entirely in Boston. The videos we think are going to be very helpful. We're going to have to reinforce that with in-person work. There are also, through Operation Lifesaver, a number of materials that we can distribute to help build awareness, but primarily it is an awareness building campaign of the right of way, dangers of trespassing, all of the things that come to mind when you think that here is a place that hasn't seen anything. Most of these people weren't born the last time a fast train went by. So we need to educate them and help them understand that this is not a place to walk the dog. It is not a shortcut to your friend's house. It's a dangerous place to be. So we want to prepare the entire region for the new higher speed trains, which they're going to start seeing next summer with the test trains. Next slide. And I think that's Q&A.
Okay, I want to thank you very much, Jean. Any questions for the young lady?
Oh, he said young lady. That was so sweet.
That's because I'm an old man. One thing I noticed, I travel 138 a lot going through Framingham, and they put a new fence along the tracks along 135.
Yes.
I assume that that's to keep people from crossing over because it's very congested with housing on that road in the Natick area.
Exactly. That's exactly what it's for. It's a deterrent. Is
Right.
it an absolutely positive, surefire deterrent? Absolutely not. If people want to get through, they'll cut. The other
Yeah.
thing they do, that I'm glad you brought that up. The other thing they do is they'll scale fences. They'll think, especially teenagers, young adults, oh, let me climb this fence. This is fun. It's a chain link fence. I get my toe in, get over. Then they land on the other side and they're in a very narrow right of way. Another very dangerous situation. So we hope that the fences are deterrent, but they're not foolproof.
Well, let's hope it works.
Yes.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for her?
Thank you. That was a great presentation, and I think it's, I'm glad to see the excuse me, the educational videos for schools, because I do think that's an important piece. The town I live in, Abington, over the years, has had a few tragedies, and it's usually a young person. And this past summer, I had this experience where I went to a restaurant in Abington, it's immediately adjacent to the tracks, and I noticed that the train, if your back's to the train, you initially hear the hum of the engine, and then about 3 seconds later, that train's on top of you. And it occurred to me that if you're on the right of way and you have earbuds or anything like that, you're never going to hear that train. And so I think and I think that's usually a lot of times the case, especially young people, they are wearing the earbuds. So I think that education piece is really important.
Thank you, Bill. There's no doubt that there's suicide by train too.
Oh, yeah.
There is. There's no doubt. But a person is hit and killed every 3 hours in the
Mhm.
United States of America. I think that's a sobering thing. And a lot of it is just, to your point, they come on you fast and you don't believe it until you're there. So the earbuds, they're just like when they cross the streets. they're in the zone, but we need to be alert and vigilant when we're in a right of way.
All right, thank you very much. Any further questions?
Yeah, if I could just ask some, first of all, I want to apologize for being so late.
Hi,
So
Nori.
glad I didn't miss you at all, Jean, because I hate
you,
to miss
Nori.
your presentations. But I wanted to ask you, Jean, how is your division going to, meet the needs of the schools? Will you be sending all this information out to the schools?
Yep. It's nice
Okay.
that I'm still currently on a regional school district, so I
Uh-huh.
can send it to mine and say circulate. But I also want it in all the libraries. I mean, the videos
Right.
now you can show them, and I want them in senior centers, Elks clubs, wherever I can get them.
Okay, that's great, because it does start at K. It really
Yes,
does.
agreed.
But the senior centers and all that, that's great.
Thank you.
Because people need to be reminded of the danger.
No
And,
question.
Thank you for giving your wonderful presentation and an update.
I'm
So
glad to
uh,
see you.
going on.
I believe Charles Kilmer has his hand raised.
Joe?
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Jean, for a wonderful presentation and for all the work you've done on this project to date. We're really excited to see it come to fruition. One of the things that we get comments on or inquiries about is adding some type of bicycle accommodation along the right of way. That there should be like a bike lane within the right of way or the rail corridor. We're just wondering about your experience with that, and it might not necessarily apply to South Coast Rail, but other rail applications.
No, it's a big one, and it's come up a lot. I promise you, and I know that in the Greater Fall River area, they're working at that. The Rails to Trails program is one. The bottom line in all of that, it's a case by case analysis. So we have a lot of areas of very narrow right of way. You just couldn't put a bike lane there. But there are other areas farther out where, while you wouldn't be right on the railroad tracks or near them, you could be parallel to them. So there are places where that's done. The Rails to Trail program is an excellent one. But again, it's case by case, and we're in a kind of dense state. It doesn't feel that way, but we're not Kansas, where everything's flat and you can put a trail. There you go. But it's ideal. It encourages mode shift, all kinds of good things. So I hear you, and I think that's an excellent question, and I am going to continue to push for it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, the further note on that, Charlie's suggestion is the fact that also bicycle safety as far as crossing tracks are concerned, what the rules and regulations are.
Yep.
Not thinking, well, you're on a bike, you can get across the track before the train comes down.
Yes,
That needs to be addressed.
it's in the video. It's in one of the videos. We have a kid
Good.
on a bike and we say, don't.
Right, because I've seen that in Abington where the trains come through. And kids, even adults, hear the train, look down and just go around the gate. I can make it. Well, someday they're not going to.
Yeah, you're right.
My thoughts. All
Thank
right,
you.
any further questions for her? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Route 18 corridor study,
Thank
Bridgewater and East Bridgewater.
Thank you,
Ray,
Jean.
is that you?
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day.
Yeah.
You too.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Bye.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next slide, please. I have a brief, a short PowerPoint just to give an overview of our Route 18 corridor study in East Bridgewater and Bridgewater. Next, please. The purpose is to develop some recommendations, and some will possibly be on the tip, but not necessarily on the tip. And this is to address traffic congestion, improve safety, circulation, and mobility for all users, and that always includes bicyclists and walkers and alternative transportation in all of our studies. And also any recommendations that we have from this corridor study are going to be coordinated with plans that are projects that are already planned, and any economic development or land use changes, which always drives transportation. Next, please. So this gives us a map of Route 18, which is in East Bridgewater and Bridgewater. It is a principal arterial under the jurisdiction of Mass DOT, except for Central Square in Bridgewater, which is under local jurisdiction. So we're going to focus on traffic volumes, average daily traffic, speeds, heavy vehicle mobility, peak hour intersection turning movements, as well as, like I said, congestion and any bottlenecks that are not necessarily might not be at an intersection, but we're looking at bottlenecks, peak hour levels of service. Safety is always important, numbers and types of crashes, and the condition, of course, of the built environment, and that includes pavement, sidewalks, pavement markings, traffic control, and signage, transit operations in the corridor, bicycle and pedestrian safety, truck operations, as I said, and changing land use and zoning, and the potential impacts of land use on traffic, and also environmental conditions like wetlands and flooding. And we expect to have a final report in September 2023. Next, please. And this is our brief overview of the timeline. Right now, we're looking at the existing conditions and data collection in late 2022. Also, we're going to have stakeholder meetings and with community officials, other interested parties. And next year, we're going to be doing analysis of existing and future conditions, and developing alternative improvements. And we're going to use the forecasting model to help us with any future scenarios in the modeling. And our draft and final report is going to be in August and September of 2023. Next, please. This is, we have 20 intersections that we're getting data collection and doing analysis at, and these include both center of East Bridgewater and the center of Bridgewater. I'm not going to go over every single intersection, but we also have 10 automatic traffic recorder locations. Next, please. And we also looking at Mass DOT top 200 crash locations off the portal, Mass crash portal, and flagging those intersections that are problematic. And the top one is Route 18, Bedford Street at Grove Street, where it's just south of Central Square in Bridgewater. And the one in the middle is, and the bottom one are both in East Bridgewater. The middle one is North Central Street at Union Street, which is actually not on Route 18. It's actually the intersection, which is right near Route 18. But this whole triangle is part of the it's part of the mobility and circulation in downtown. So we're going to include it in the analysis, because a lot of the traffic from the intersection of Central Street and Route 18 backs up through this intersection, and it's all related. And the bottom one is in East Bridgewater, which is a skewed intersection at North Bedford Street and Highland Street. Next, please. So I'm just going to go over the next couple of slides, have just a brief overview of previous study and projects. In 2009, OCPC completed a Route 18 corridor study. But that included Abington, Whitman, East Bridgewater, and Bridgewater, but this one is only East Bridgewater and Bridgewater. But in that, we did have some, we obviously, we did analysis, and we had some improvement projects that we recommended. We had a couple of recommendations for the center of East Bridgewater, which was improved pedestrian safety. And I believe there was adding a left turn lane on the northbound approach. And some of the projects in East Bridgewater that have recently been approved by the PRC. You can see in this picture, there's under construction, there's along Route 18 south of East Bridgewater Center, there's a project where we have sidewalk improvements along Route 18. Also planned is intersection improvements at Route 18 West Street and East Street, and intersection improvements at Highland Street and Route 18, which I previously showed in the map for top 200 intersections in Massachusetts. Next, please. In Bridgewater, again, we did Central Square in Bridgewater. And we had some improvement recommendations. Again, pedestrian safety in Central Square. We also recommended extending lane markings for the left turns in Central Square. And we also recently completed a road safety audit for Route 1828 at Grove Street, which is also on the top 200 list. And we recommended reversing the one-way street on Grove Street, add flashing beacons and warning signs, and improve the pedestrian amenities. Previous projects in Bridgewater, bridge replacement over the Taunton River on Route 1828, which is completed. Intersection improvements at Winter Street and Route 1828, which was signalized, and that's south of Bridgewater Central Square. And north of Central Square, the signalization at Route 18 and High Street. So our next steps are to do the existing conditions analysis, the stakeholder input, look at future traffic development, future needs for any changing development along the corridor. And so we can develop future scenarios and do the analysis for that, and develop some improvements, and finalize the improvements in consultation with stakeholders, local stakeholders and Mass DOT. And final report, as I said, in September 2023. And that is a brief, quick overview of our corridor study for Route 18. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Ray. Dan, so what you hear again. I've been living off of Route 18 for the last 45 years in Whitman, and I can see the traffic is unbelievable. Route 18 was not built to deal with what we're dealing with today. Most roads and streets are the same way, especially where it's the truck route. The only way I can see possibly helping that issue is to make sure that when Route 18 goes from 2 lanes to 1 lane to 2 lanes, it just congests everything, especially at intersections.
Yeah.
If there's a way of solving those issues by taking land along each side, if there's land to be taken, I think that would be a mass improvement. I don't know which other way to deal with it, because there's just too many vehicles on Route 18 and it wasn't built for it. Everybody's moving south, moving there, and people are building houses along Route 18, and the congestion is just getting more and more, and the traffic traffic is getting more and more. So that being said, that's my comments. That's about the only thing I could think of.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else has any comments.
needs consistency as far as number of lanes. When there's a lane drop, that creates bottlenecks. And the other thing about our corridors like Route 18 is they're commercial, they have a lot of commercial activity.
Yeah.
So they not only have, their function is not only to move traffic from point A to point B, but now they become a destination.
Right.
And because of the land use, and so that kind of changes the functionality of the road. So you have people trying to do two things. One, they're trying to go to and from places along the corridor. And the other thing is people are using them to go from point A to point B, and they're trying to get through as fast as possible. So there's a conflict there. And you have more traffic signals along the corridor. You have more curb cuts along the corridor and more cross movements and conflicts. So so it isn't an easy, it's not a simplistic problem. It becomes a little bit more complex, because the functions change and things change as time goes on. So
Right, especially you can't get places you can't widen the road due to land use. So I mean, it's a difficult situation that we'll deal with it one way or another.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions for Ray? Seeing none, where are we moving on to? That's C, I believe. Old Colony 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan. Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you've seen me come to this meeting a couple times already, talking about various steps in the development of the 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan. I've presented our goals and objectives. I've presented our planning scenarios. So this is now that we're officially in October and officially kicking off this program year. I'm just giving you a brief overview of what the development schedule for this is and our plan for public engagement. So it's just entertaining me here. So you can see some of the key dates going forward. So looking ahead to next spring, we're looking to have a completed draft internally by April 2023. And that's when, the draft will be completed and we'd be kind of peer reviewing it and kind of reaching out to some of our stakeholders privately and looking to review it before a formal release to a public comment period. That date has been determined to be May 16th, 2023. During that public comment period, we'll present the plan in full to our board, the Old Colony Planning Council, at their meeting on May 31st, 2023, and to this Joint Transportation Committee on June 1st, 2023. Ultimately, the goal is to have the NPO endorse the plan on June 20th at their meeting. So then, obviously, moving backwards, development would just start now and go through this winter, and we'd obviously be coming to a nearing a completion in the middle of next spring. So obviously, public engagement is very important. So you can see some of the key steps with our key components of our public engagement plan. We will be doing a public survey that'll piggyback on some of the survey work that's already been done by MassDOT for the Beyond Mobility plan that they're currently developing. We'll identify, engage stakeholders, community organizations, populations of limited English proficiency, traditionally underserved communities, and environmental justice populations, and environmental groups. We'll be reporting to this committee monthly and reporting to the NPO as often as they convene, which is expected to be monthly. As we starting their next meeting, we're probably going to be, the NPO will probably be meeting monthly. So we'll also have regular updates to them as well. We will have a series of virtual webinars, at least 2. Those would be scheduled at convenient times where both stakeholders and the general public can participate. We're planning on having an open house here where people will be invited to come in and speak with us. we'll have planning on with the cooperation of Brockton Area Transit, having table events at their intermodal center where we can meet with and engage commuters using both the Brockton Area Transit System as well as the commuter rail across the street. We will have a dedicated page on our website for this plan with regular updates, and we'll be using both traditional and social media to reach out to the public. And that's not a completely inclusive list of how we plan on doing our public engagement, but those are some major components of our public engagement plan. And so that's kind of that's a overview of our plan of our schedule and public engagement plan right now. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them right now, or you can always contact me offline through email or phone.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions for Bill? Seeing none, we'll move on to old business or other business, excuse me. Let's see, community local technical assistance study. Bill, you're up again.
Thank you, Dan. Again, so on your screen is update of our LTA program. The LTA program is starting to become busy. It's keeping all of us busy, which is a good thing. You see on your screen, we have one update. We received a request for a new traffic study in East Bridgewater. That'll be on Plymouth Street, which is Route 106 in the area of Bridge Street. And that data collection will commence this fall. And then you can see on your screen just the other projects that we're currently working on. There's a lot of data analysis going on right now. We recently did completed data collection in Hanover. We're actively working on that data analysis and hope to turn that product out to the town very soon, hopefully next week. East Bridgewater, right now we have traffic counters out on Central Street, looking at that corridor, and that'll be done in October, later towards the end of the month. Kingston, we're working with them to do a traffic study, Route 27 to Lake Street. So that data analysis is underway. So a lot going on. Plymouth, we're working with the town to do drone flights over 3 intersections. So yeah, it's a busy program. It's a good program. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Did anybody have any?
Bill,
Go ahead.
John Howard, I got a question for Bill.
Go
Sure.
ahead.
Did you ever go down to Hanson to check those 2 intersections of East Washington and Whitman and West Washington and Spring Street? And also the one where Liberty Street comes into East Washington? It's like a double S curve there. I was wondering if you ever went down there and looked at those intersections.
We did. I want to say 20. I believe it was like right around when pandemic started. So I think 2 years ago, March 2020, met with town officials looking at those 2 intersections. Actually went out to the intersections with the then DPW director and came up with some short-term recommendations that they could try.
Okay. No, I was just curious whether or not anything been looked at.
Yeah, we've looked at it.
I took care of my wife for quite a few years, but I'm getting myself back into this again. So I'll probably be asking you more questions about Hanson.
Hey, no problem. Bring it on.
There you go, Don. Any further questions for Bill?
Yeah, Dan, this is Rhonda Nyman from Hanover. Just a quick
Yes.
question, Bill. I
Mhm.
know they picked up the counters over
Yep.
there in that Grove Street area. When could we anticipate getting results for those? When will we know roughly?
Hopefully next week. So I've already done a lot of the analysis. There's a couple of pieces of analysis I still need to do for level of service. I looked at the overall numbers. I mean, I could tell you right now. So we saw a very substantial drop in traffic on Grove Street from the changes you all implemented. I think there was one, Center Street in between Grove Street and Main Street. That saw an increase in traffic as would be expected, I believe. So that analysis is underway, and again, I hope to have that to you next week.
That's great. Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you for everything, you came right out and put those things, set them up for us. And, we appreciate all that you're doing. I know everybody in the town of Hanover and the Traffic State Study Committee as well. So just thanks again.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
It's our pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is B, staff review on ENF and EIR and the NPC. Kyle?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Bill, you can go down a little bit. So we have two new environmental impact reports. The first is in Kingston for the comprehensive wastewater management plan. With an increasing population, increased demand for sewers and wastewater treatment, the town is currently constructing a wastewater treatment plan expansion project, and that's scheduled to be complete in late 2022. Next is for the town of Easton, Owl Ridge Estates. They had to complete an environmental impact report as well. This is for a 6 single-family lot residential subdivision proposed on about 3.6 acres. The subdivision, it's designed as a cluster open space to leave most of the forested land on the site intact. The proposed location of the estate is at 58 Mill Street, which is located just south of Borderland State Park. Next slide. And we have one public notice. There's a public hearing on the vegetation management plan. This is on November 2nd from 11 to 11:30, and this involves multiple towns in our region. You can see listed here, and I provided the link to the Zoom meeting, and that's in you can find that in your staff report. And that concludes my report for MIPA.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Kyle? Hearing none, we go to C, regional concerns and local community transportation issues. Does anybody have any? Okay, I'll start it off. For people to be a little bit patient, as everybody knows, there's a lot of road construction going on, mostly from National Grid, where they're diverting the traffic, side streets and whatever. I noticed when they were doing a water break on School Street in my area, the traffic was reverted down one street and past my street, and cars were frustrated and doing 40, 50 miles an hour on a 30-mile-an-hour zone with a lot of kids. So I suggest that they direct the traffic to side streets and to be a little bit more careful and be concerning about what's going on, because eventually the streets will be repaired and be in good shape. And a second comment is people are constantly complaining about Route 14 in the town of Whitman from Route 18 to Rockland Line. That's being worked on. When it's done, you'll be appreciated. And I know that there was a concern about a sidewalk being placed there. That is not in the plans for a sidewalk on that area. And I've talked to our DPW, and to replace a sidewalk on one side of Route 14 is going to be well over $1 million to get that project done. And it's not in the plans at this time. So I just wanted to put that out there. Anybody else?
Yes, I'd like to just say something, Dan.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dan. I think you're kicking me out of my job as chair.
No, I'm not.
I just wanted to apologize to the group for being late. I get tied up with someone at work, and I said, oh, my. Someone reminded me, you have a meeting. I said, oh, I do. So sorry about that, everyone. Great meeting, though. I only missed 10 minutes, so.
I'm glad you're back. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. I tell you what, why don't you call for the adjournment?
You want me to call for the adjournment?
For the adjournment, say, motion to adjourn.
Yes, I'll
Do I have a
second it.
motion for adjournment?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That ought to mess up the minutes.
There you go. Thank
All right,
you. all.
thank you. Thank you,
Appreciate
everybody.
it.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
All right, bye-bye.